Very good morning. I am Shilpa and I welcome you all to the CIET NCERT live phone-in program. This session is going to be the third session on globalization and the Indian economy for class 10th. And if you want to watch our previous session on the same topic, then you can go on our official YouTube channel NCERT Official, and there on the search box, if you will type globalization and the Indian economy, then you will be able to find our previous sessions as well. And with us we have today Professor M.V. Srinivasan, Professor of Economics from the Department of Education in Social Sciences. I welcome you, Professor Srinivasan.
Thank you.
And to the viewers, if you come across any questions related to our today's topic of discussion, then you can dial into our toll-free numbers. Numbers are 1800111265 and 1800112199. You can also send your questions on our official email ID ciet.kishormanch@gmail.com. Moreover, you can comment your questions during our YouTube live streaming, which is happening now, and our official YouTube channel is NCERT Official. So coming back to you, Professor Srinivasan, previously also you had sessions on globalization and the Indian economy. So first of all, if you could just recapitulate.
Thank you for giving this opportunity to CIET and NCERT to interact on this very important topic which pervades all our lives. My dear viewers, students, parents and teachers, you may recall that in the part 1, part 2 we discussed about what is a multinational company and many more things. If you look at the screen, actually I would like to make a caveat that whatever the names of the companies that I am discussing here, they are shown not with the intention of marketing, but to provide some concrete real life examples so that we understand the topic of globalization. I already told you that globalization is one important phenomena which is social, economic, cultural and political, which pervades all our lives. So we need to see these companies and names as just for the sake of understanding the concept of globalization. That's the first caveat. And if you look at what we discussed in the part 1, part 2, you remember that I brought all the things that the multinational companies produce. We also discussed why we study globalization. We need to study globalization as part of our citizens' education, so that we understand what's happening in the society, it is in the public domain, so that we understand how to make some decisions when we are buying goods. You see, look at the, if you look at this table here, I brought you some small items here. Look at this. If you look at this brush, if you look at the brush, actually you can see the this brush, there is a brand name is there, and brush, the pharmaceutical, this is marketed by an Indian company, okay. And if you look at this is a market, and then if you look at the crayons which young children are playing, pencils, sketch pencils, Fevistick, all these products, not only these small products, and if you look at JCBs, cranes and large, like even maybe in 5-10 years you may see multinational companies producing the defense materials and in India. That's also possible. So you will find ranging from the brush, toothpaste to paste, many commodities are now produced by the multinational companies, and any topic that deals with the globalization, we need to engage the idea of multinational company. So that's why we discussed what is meant by a multinational company. You know that multinational company is the one which produces goods in various countries and sells in various countries, so that the production linkages are established. These days the modern term is also used by the management, is that global supply chain management. Global supply chain management. So we need to understand the globalization, and we also know that what is meant by a multinational company, how you can identify a multinational company. I gave you many examples in the last 2 sessions. How, and then we also discussed about how the multinational companies operate, how do they work, how do they get established. I showed you that a small company, a bakery owner in a small town in London, and how he became a global brand, the biscuit company I showed you last time. So that's also one example. The second example, that the multinational companies, they go to other country and tie up with a domestic country, a small company over there and work with them. I showed you how the Ford India which is making cars. Now has a tie-up with the Mahindra company,
Right.
how they expand production and they sell cars not only to Indian market, it's also selling its own domestic in USA. Okay, so we also showed that multinational companies, they go and buy many smaller companies. I showed you how the Cargill Foods, how
Yes.
they purchased Parag Foods, and so that they are able to get the all the understanding about the local situation. So how they produce edible oil and many more products actually. So these are some of the ways the multinational companies operate and expand actually. Okay, and we also discussed last time that particularly in the second part, the globalization is not happening for the first time, but the nature of globalization is quite different. So historians, they call it we are living in the globalization part 3. Okay, and so we began discussing about it, and we discussed how the East India Company, I showed you one book title called Anarchy by William Dalrymple, how that book describes the way East India Company, the first multinational company
Right.
established 300 years before, how they expand, how they go and occupy the territories of many other nations, other continents actually. Okay, so we also discussed about, so there are 3 phases of globalization, and we will look at some of the pictures now also. And then what facilitates globalization? We discussed about how the government functions, how the technology facilitates globalization, how the international organizations, WTO, like such as WTO facilitates globalization. That's where we began discussing, and we ended with some multiple true or false questions also. So today what we are going to do, if you look at the screen, these are the 4 ideas we will try to discuss today. How the WTO, World Trade Organization, influences our lives. We are also going to see the website if you are having internet connection in your house and or in your mobile phone, and please go to the website, it's very important. We will come little later. Then we also look, we are also going to see, this is going to be the last part, how the globalization impacts India. It's not that it has already impacted and it is over, it is still impacting, it is still pervading, it's happening in India. This and there are globalization also pose challenges, lots of challenges and advantages to the people. How people deal with the globalization, we are going to discuss today. And then finally we are going to conclude this topic with some summary ideas, and as usual we will have some items, true or false questions, which Shilpa will also try to answer the questions.
Yes,
Okay.
certainly.
Yeah. So if you look at the screen, actually globalization 1. See, this is also, it's not a finite idea. There are many ways of periods, grouping the globalization into 3 part, 4 part, but broadly historians look at this in 3 actually. It started from the say 15th or 16th century, and globalization 1.1, it is basically the many trading companies like East India Company, companies established, traders going to many countries in their ships, mainly in ships, and buying things and going back to the country and their own parent country, and then sell it actually, they earn profit out of it. So that was a kind of globalization 1.1. Historians call globalization 1.0 as the largest mobility of people all over the world, which has never happened in the second phase and third phase. For example, people from Africa or from Asia, they all moved to countries like America or in Australia. Crores of people moved. They moved as indentured laborers, and they worked for the companies, they worked for the colonial governments. The idea of colonialism came into being. Many continents, subcontinents were invaded by these companies and governments, and that was the first set of globalization 1.1. I showed you this in the screen, the ships. If you look at the screens, you look at the technology, what kind of technology, what is the nature of the ship. So that was used in the globalization 1.3. Okay, they were not, yes, there was a compass which I showed you last time, which took 200 years to travel from China to Europe. But once the compass reached the explorers of Europe, they moved to all over the globe actually. They used this kind of ship. The first ship that you are seeing is made on the basis of the Tipu Sultan. It is called Tipu Sultan ship actually. Okay, and if you look at the other ships also, you can see how they used the nature, how they used air, the natural conditions, climate, Okay, so this was the globalization phase 1.1. So if we look at the second phase of globalization, which starts with the industrial revolution. Industrial revolution led to, we all know that the technological revolution, you find factory system came into being. For example, many companies from UK, they came to India, procured cotton, indigo and other products and then took it back to their own country, produced cloths and sold all over the world and also within their own country. Okay, so the beginning of the industrial revolution could be considered as globalization phase 2.0. So in that time, containers started coming into being, container technology began emerging, and then technologies, factories were established all over the world actually. And the globalization 2.0 also witnessed with a lot of protectionist policies, because people started moving more and more, and then countries started beginning erecting barriers actually. There were trade barriers and many countries became liberalized in the second phase of globalization. Countries like India became free nation, and the so what happened, many new countries and also the existing countries, they started erecting barriers. You cannot move from one country to other country, and so they started enacting new laws. Okay, so you will find the globalization not at a mass scale, but certainly the goods have moved, people have moved, technology began moving, but the gap is different. For example, that the watch that I am showing today, or this technology that I am using today, this same technology you can find in US or all over the world actually. But in globalization 2.0, second phase of globalization, it took some 20 to 25 years to move one technology. Imagine the Volvo bus that you are seeing today. The Volvo bus was first produced in Switzerland, in Netherlands actually. Okay, the company is in Netherlands. So that company, it took for us India 25 years to travel to India. So we got Volvo bus only after 25 years. So that was the way technology was moving very slowly. It's not easily available. The copyright laws were very stringent actually. So the globalization 2 was something where the the shipping technology and other technologies have been in place, but the mobility was very, very restricted actually. The globalization 3, what I was showing you, if you look at the screen, you will find it a little later. I will show you what is this globalization 3.0. So the globalization 3.0 is witnessed with the information and communication technology and the space technology. For example, the satellites were used by many countries for communication purposes. The space technology began to be used in a mass level for civilian purposes. Okay. For example, if you look at the GPS system, global positioning system, which is also part of the communication received from the satellites. So all over the Earth, on the orbit of and on the Earth orbit, you will find more in the science textbook what is this satellite technology means, or space technology. So people are able to understand, know about it. I already told you in the last session that if I am not well, if I want to consult a doctor located in UK, I can just show my watch, I can tell him my heart rate, pulse rate and all the details from my machine. Okay, and then he will prescribe me medicines. These days the globalization 3.0 is also witnessed with the people doing surgery by the advice of the doctor located 10,000 kilometers away from you. That's happening today. So the globalization 3 is highly motivated by the changes in laws, changes in the government, the nature of way the government functions, and the changes in the technology, particularly the communication technology. Okay, and it's also possible now that the technology's information flow that facilitates the globalization 3.3, globalization 3.0. So if you look at the slide, actually I showed you how the we will come back. Yes, we'll. If you look at the way globalization 3 operated, people, for example, a new organization came into being, that's called World Trade Organization. Okay, what is called World Trade Organization? The World Trade Organization is an organization established in 1995. Its previous name was General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. After the World War II, many governments felt that we have to work together if we want to import and export goods and commodities, because all the countries cannot produce all the goods that they wanted. Okay.
So before you explain World Trade Organization, about World Trade Organization, viewers here are requesting you to please take up some questions they had asked you in your previous session.
Okay.
So I think we should take those questions first.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question has been asked by Jasmine and Mr. Preetham. They both are asking how MNCs being a major force in globalization process.
Yeah, so it's very good question. Actually, multinational companies began expanding because of the technological developments. So if you look at many companies earlier, they sold within their own territory. Okay, so how they came into being, it's also because of the World Trade Organization. When governments came together, sat on the table, that decided that okay, I will allow your company to see, when we talk about globalization, it is not happening something out of nature. It is the companies, the many producers functioning in different countries, they produce in different countries and they sell in different countries. For example, the Ford car, if you look at 30 years before, if you are wanting to buy a Ford car, India has put lot of restrictions in terms of import. Okay, import duty. For example, if your Ford car cost about 10,000 rupees, if it wants to sell it to a consumer in India, the consumer here, he has to pay not only 10,000 rupees the price of the car, he also has to pay 300%, 200% taxes. That is called tariff, import tariff. Okay, the customs duty. Okay, so he has to pay 20,000 rupees more, 30,000 rupees more, so that the total car cost was 40,000 rupees. Okay, so when the WTO got established and many countries became members, and the countries came together, they decided that okay, let us reduce this tariff. Okay, there are possible that, for example, you know that we are using wheat for making bread, for making atta. Okay, whereas countries like America produces huge amount of wheat on their land actually. Okay, so it is possible that if they want to sell wheat in India, the Indian farmers may get affected, because for America wheat is a surplus product actually. So if they want to sell it in India, they can sell it at a very low price actually. So the country India also restricted, that is called quantitative restriction. Okay, so many countries restricted the import of goods into their own territory because it will affect the local producers. It is also called protectionism. Okay, so all these restrictions were removed, relaxed, so that the companies can come. That is how the multinational companies grow. They were able to move to many countries, they'll sell their products. In that process, they also moved the technology. They also moved the people's skills actually. So in that way, that is how the MNCs have been able to expand their protection activities. So we are going to discuss in our PowerPoint how they were, like how many today and so on.
Okay, I'll take up one more question, and this has been asked by Miss Renuka Dikshit, and she is asking that the rise of MNCs means more skilled employees will be required in India particularly, she is talking about, which already has a large number of unskilled and illiterate people. So that means unemployability will be coming to the scene if globalization keep on happening.
Yeah, that's the major observation. I also come to know that I read some of the articles on this issue. I noticed that it is not only in India, many people who are less skilled are becoming unemployed. Yes. Even in America, even in Europe also, many people who are not highly skilled, they become unemployed. I gave you one example in the first session that when the harvester thresher came, a thresher can, suppose you have a 5 acre of land, if you want to harvest paddy or wheat. So it used to take about 15 days by 5 workers. Okay, 5 acre of land actually. Okay, slowly they will just cut it and then they will harvest it. They will manually take out the paddy from the hay. Whereas the thresher, the machine does believe it in 1 hour. So if you look at the way how the agricultural laborers lost their jobs by the thresher, is simple example that the globalization certainly is going to be little, it's painful for the people who are not skilled actually. Okay, so let me go to the, I'll come back to the few more questions. So the way how the WTO functions. WTO was established in 1995, and right now there are about 160 people. If you look at the screen, you can see the website, its own website. Shilpa will show you the website, and you have a very interesting details about WTO.
Yes.
Okay, so WTO is organization where India is also one of the member countries. People can come to the table of WTO office, negotiate. It is the organization with global trade. It is organization which is having the rule book of how to trade, how you can import, how you can export commodities. Okay, so you look at this website, very interesting. It gives you a lot of insights on how they function for trading between nations. Okay, so every second year they conduct a meeting, and the people, see, you are looking at the website. In the website you can see the people are talking about, discussing in the meeting. Okay, so this is the important website. I would strongly advise you to go through the WTO. It gives you some of the simple way how the WTO helps countries to have a free trade actually. Okay, that's one thing. So let me go back to my screen. Actually, if you look at the screen, one example is that the in WTO many countries or their representatives, they go there and then negotiate with other countries on what commodities they can import and export, and what quantities they can import and export, and what kind of what is the amount of tariff that they can lay. Okay. What is the tax level, the level of taxes the countries can impose on the goods that are coming into or going out of it actually. Okay, okay, so these are the areas I'm just giving you in a simple manner. So it facilitates trade between countries. It facilitates companies engaged in trade. When I say about facilitating trade, it is not the companies go to the WTO, it is the governments. So once the governments go make a agreement between nations, they come back to their own countries and implement in the law, implement in their parliament. So whatever the changes that they made, for example, I'll give you one example. So one computer cost about 20,000 rupees. So it is say imported from Japan. Okay, when it comes to India, India has to decide how much tax can be laid on this computer. It could be 10% or 20% or 30%. Okay, so this decision is taken at the WTO, and then Indian government makes a law in their law books that okay, if a computer is imported to India, we can tax 20% only, 10% only. So this decision takes at the level of country. So whatever the company, Japanese company brings import and sell it in our country, they will pay a tax as specified by the government. Okay, so WTO is facilitating the trade between countries. Okay. Okay, so if you look at the screen, I am showing you something called ministerial meetings. Okay, this is the example of a ministerial meeting where hundreds of people from many countries, they come, they sit, and they discuss. Okay, so they present. And if there are any dispute between two countries in terms of, for example, what is the level of taxes or how much they can import or export, if there are dispute, these disputes are taken to the WTO. Okay. And there is a dispute settlement mechanism, like the way judges are working. And WTO also has, there are people, so they settle the disputes between countries. Okay, that's the second set. If you look at the I already told you that WTO also helps, for example, there are some countries giving a special status, that is called most favored nation. Okay, most favored nation means, okay, if there is a small country, it wants to thrive, sustain its own production. For example, let me take the example of a small country producing sugar. Okay, so it is able to, it is only agrarian dependent country. So India wants to support that country. So it can give you a status of most favored nation. That means that country can export sugar to India, and so India will not charge any tax. Okay, so this kind of status also many countries can give under the negotiation table of WTO. And I already told you that WTO also helps in settling the disputes, particularly trade disputes only. Not the territory disputes, only trade disputes WTO is settling down. Okay. Okay. So you may be interested to know that okay, now the WTO's many like multinational companies came into being. How many? Who are they? And what is their size actually? Look at the slide actually. So if you look at the slide, I showed you that today, if you look at 20 years before or 30 years before, there were about less than 200 MNCs operating in India. Okay, today if you look at the screen, for those who are not able to see the numbers, today roughly about 2012-13, about nearly 1,000 multinational companies are having their own presence in India. Okay, they may be small companies or maybe big companies, but nearly from 200 to 1,000 MNCs operating in India. Okay, and how their size is actually. Look at the next slide. There are different colors shown here. I am giving you the important point. What is there in this point? Revenues earned by the multinational companies. And if you look at 1990s and in recent times like 2014-15, the major revenue earned by the multinational companies in India are from the automobile industry. And earlier they were able to have 30%. Automobile refers to cars, lorries, all the vehicles, big machines. Okay, they come under automobile industry. Okay, so that is the first. They are the major players in 1990s. Today also they are the major players actually. So if the multinational companies 100 rupees earn 100 rupees, out of this 100 rupees, nearly 30 rupees goes to the automobile industry. Their size is so big. What you are seeing on here, all these consumer goods, they are also there, but they are at a very low level actually. The second, if you look at the screen again, there is a dark grey color, and that refers to the FMCG goods, fast moving consumer goods. That is also important commodity. Okay, the capital goods constitute about 9%. Capital goods, the third bar you are seeing here, it's a blue color bar you are seeing. The blue color bar is referring to chemical, consumer, like if you look at, that's also consumer durables actually.
Blue is consumer
durables.
Yes.
So consumer durables refers to the television, refrigerator, all the goods that we are using in our house. Okay, that and pharmaceutical industry also almost like a 10% share is there actually. So IT industry, which was not there in 1990s, today IT industry also is constituting 10%.
Okay.
So don't think that the IT industry is the only major revenue, earning a lot of revenue. They earn revenue only 10%. The rest of them are consumer goods, consumer durables, and huge share is by the automobile industry. Okay, so the automobile industry is the major MNC. That is why in NCERT textbook you can find the example of the Ford India, how the Ford India functions. That is also one of the example of automobile industry. Okay, let me come to the very crucial topic that this globalization now has three phases, starting from 16th century. How it has impact? How it impacts India? In what way you can see that it has impacted or not? I am giving you 3 points here. The first point is that
here viewers can ask question by commenting which is happening now, our live streaming. You can comment your questions there, and Professor Srinivasan will certainly try his best to answer all your questions. Can we continue?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you look at the first impact is that the foreign investment. India has attracted many companies abroad, foreign companies, to come and invest in India. Ford India, I already gave you example, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and pharmaceutical companies. Many companies have set up their own shops in India, and they set up many factories also in India. Okay, many companies from South Korea, Japan, so they all that led to more and more arrival of foreign investment. When a foreign company comes, set up, put their money in technology and set up factories in India, that is called foreign investment. Okay. The second impact is that if you look at today, many new industrial hubs have come. You know about Tirupur. Tirupur was a small unknown town 20-30 years before, and today it is becoming a major garment industry hub. And people who are running factories there, they travel to Europe every week. Okay, and there is another city called Ludhiana, some packets of Delhi also. So that is one of the industrial hubs. Ghaziabad, Gurgaon, and Pune, and this major hub of IT industry is Bangalore. It's also called Silicon Valley. So the globalization has led to establishment of new industrial hubs, service provider hubs. When we say service provider hubs, since the software is a kind of service product, and the many companies producing service products, they are also called service hubs actually.
Okay.
All the BPOs, okay, outsourcing, like, so they are also called service companies. So many industrial hubs and service providing hubs also got established in India. And globalization, not only in India, in many countries like China, there is a new system of industrial complexes get established. They are called special economic zones. So these special economic zones, where any company with small few legal procedures, they can set up their factories there. Government will give you a land, government will give you basic infrastructure of roads, government also will give you electricity facilities. It will also give you tax-free period for 5 years and 10 years and so on. Okay, so these special economic zones and the labor laws are relaxed in those zones actually. Okay, so these industrial hubs are also getting established not only in India, all over the world. In India also there are 7-8 special economic zones. You can look at the Google, Bombay, Chennai, and many places you find special economic zones. Okay. The third impact is that the globalization has led to competition, severe competition between the small companies and among the MNCs themselves actually. I told you in the last session that we used to drink a lot of fruit juices. We also produce a lot of fruits, so we used to get fruit juices. So when the Pepsi and Coca-Cola came, hundreds and thousands of fruit juice shops have gone into oblivion. They were nowhere you could be seen actually. Okay, so that is the small companies, they get perished. Some of them get survived, some of them get tie up, some of them bought sold. For example, the mango drink Mirinda or the Maaza, they were all small companies. Even Fruity also, like these companies, they were bought by the big giant MNCs. Okay, so it globalization led to intense competition. Some of them are able to survive, some of them could not survive. It's also defined by the Joseph Schumpeter as creative destruction. For example, when the technologies, I showed you in the last session that when my mobile phone began having a camera facility, the Kodak and Konica, all these companies, they employed at most 2-3 lakh workers all over the world. They have to shut their doors, they close their doors because of the mobile company, like mobiles having the camera. Okay, so it is increasing intense competition among the companies. That is the major impact actually. And Indian companies also has to face this competition, and they have to come into being. So that is why they make tie-up with the multinational companies when they come to India. And the multinational companies are also having a lot of implications on sustainable development. Sometime back you must have seen in the newspaper that how in Kerala a cool drink company, Pepsi or Coca-Cola, I don't know, so how they take away the groundwater, which led to severe implications for the farmers in that locality. Okay, and so this sometimes the contract farming led to increased cultivation of specific commodities. Okay, and so the multinational companies also has implications on, because they will require quality requirements in a very rigorous manner. Okay, so what happens? The many farmers are not able to cope up with the quality requirements, and it also affects the groundwater level. It also that is also a major issue with regard to sustainable development. And then globalization also has other sides. For example, many companies came into being in India. For example, which this is the I showed you last time. This is the Fevistick. This company is located in Pidilite Industries. It is located in Mumbai, but it produces it imports from the Korea. Okay, so it is having a headquarters in India and produces the commodity in Korea and bring it back to India. Okay, like this, Infosys and Wipro, many more companies came into being. So the MNCs began getting established within India. Okay, many public industries, for example, the GAIL and ONGC, they also began set up companies abroad actually. So the Indian, not only the government, like private companies, government companies also become MNCs. Okay, so the Indian Oil Company, so they are all becoming MNCs. So that is a major positive trend one can see actually. And the globalization has led to service-driven economic development. You must have studied, particularly class 10 students, that in first chapter development, or in second chapter sector of the Indian economy, you can see that how the service sector contribution is increasing. The role of service sector in terms of GDP, gross domestic product, the contribution of service sector is now the highest. Nearly 60% of the GDP is contributed by the service sector. So the globalization is also witnessing the service sector driven development. Okay, see, if you look at my slide actually, I told you that many companies have closed their small enterprises because they cannot bear the cost of production actually. Okay, they are not able to compete and sell at a lower place. Particularly, in fact, impact was seen in the toys and goods coming from China. Very recently, you find. I noticed. I went to a place called Chandni Chowk in Delhi in I asked a trader that what is the nature of commodity that are being sold. You know, the Chandni Chowk is the hub of the technological goods, watches and many electronic goods are sold there in wholesale markets actually for electronic goods. I asked him what is the change that you are seeing in the 30 years time. He told me that in 1995, 90% of the products that were sold in Chandni Chowk were made Delhi products. They were all made in Noida and the Haryana and surrounding areas. And today 95% of the goods are coming from China. So that kind of change has happened in India actually. Okay, and globalization also has changed the nature of jobs. Okay, and the nature of jobs are highly fragile. For example, if I am doing a particular job today, doesn't mean that this skill will be required in the next 10 years or after 10 years also. There is no surety that these same skills will be required. So the nature of skill requirement for jobs that are prevailing today may be different from what kind of jobs that may be getting created of say 10 years after 15 years. This was not the case earlier. So globalization also led to the nature of jobs which are very fragile, uncertain. There are some people it's also possible that there are some people, for example, people with very highly qualified degrees, for example, BTech from the established universities, institutions, they are able to get jobs. So the highly skilled jobs are getting generated by the globalization forces. Okay, and particularly people living in the urban areas with high capital, they are able to grab the new opportunities. That's the major, very sad aspect one can see in the globalization process. Yes, we are all getting goods on very cheap actually. For example, when you want to have a landline connection say 10 years before or 15 years before, you have to apply to the MTNL or government company and wait for 5 years. Today you just go to a shop, you are getting connected. Within 2-3 hours you get a connection for your, so you can talk to people all over the world. So, and if you look at the television that we are all watching today, which you are watching today, these televisions, if you look at the company, the name of the company of those televisions, I am sure 95% of these names are all from abroad, Seoul, particularly Seoul or Japanese company. So you will find that you get a very cheap television, you get cheap mobile phone, some of the toys are also very cheap. So many goods are available at a very affordable rate. That is good, but for whom it is available? It is available for people who can buy, who can afford actually, and who live in cities actually. Okay, that is the major things. That is the kind of, if you look at, if you want to see the globalization happen, yes, it has benefited some section, but it has also not reached the many sections. Okay, that's the way one can look at the impact of globalization, and the impact is still happening. It's not that it's over, it's still happening. And I have to see that how people dealt with globalization today, because when agricultural laborers lose their jobs, what they will do. Okay, so there are two ways. If you look at globalization phase 1, phase 2, I already told you that led to colonialism, and people as taken from one country to other country as slaves, indentured laborers to work on fields actually. So the people have to fight. So the globalization phase 1.1 has led to freedom struggle, freedom of many countries, freedom struggle. Okay, that was the way people have dealt with actually. And people have met, for example, Gandhi said that we had to buy Swadeshi goods. Okay, and we all know that what is the Swadeshi movement. Okay, in the second phase, the globalization has witnessed with the lot of protectionist policies, because the moment industrial revolution took place, many countries wanted to protect their own jobs, their own factories, their own people. So they erected barriers. Still, with some regulations, people are moving, goods were moving actually at a small level. Phase 3 now, the people are dealing with, if you look at the way how deal with that, many international organizations like ILO, United Nations Development Program, many civil society organizations, they fight trade unions, and you will find a lot of, if in the book also there is a poster containing people struggling against globalization, liberalization policies of the governments actually, because of which the governments and the people representatives, when they go to WTO, sit with the negotiating table with other countries, they also put stringent rules in favor of their own nation's interest actually. Okay, so so whatever the trade regulations, unless it is benefiting a country and the government administrators, they don't easily succumb to the pressures of the WTO. Okay, that is the one way to look at it actually. And if you look at the phase 3 is still going, and the technology is getting transformed, innovated, and it's not yet over. Okay, so the people keep struggling to face. I think there are some questions with regard to the what is this by the globalization, fair globalization.
Yes.
Can you just read out those?
Yes, I can read those questions, and these questions were being asked by Ms. Priyanka Dubey and Mr. Nirmal Chauhan. They both have actually asked about what is meant by fair globalization, and also what's the role of government in making globalization fair.
One way to making, see, when we say about globalization means, see, the benefits of the globalization in terms of availability of goods at a cheaper level should reach all the people. Okay, people from the rural area and urban area and so on. For example, your mobile phone tower will get better only in cities. If you go 30 kilometers or 20 kilometers from Delhi or from Bangalore or from Chennai, if you go little away from district, you will not get proper mobile phone facilities. That means the development fruits should reach all the people. And what the government can do, the government should not be losing, should not make it labor laws flexible. Government has to make sure that whoever is working in a company, working for a company, need to be provided with the social security provisions. For example, if many farmers are committing suicide, particularly we know that in India cotton farmers committing suicide in states like Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and many states actually. So the government should take a role in protecting their lives, provide bank facilities, lending facilities, so that they don't go for committing suicide actually. Okay, government can proactive role in WTO when they negotiate with the developing countries that we also have our own rights, the rights and responsibilities of our people need to be protected. For example, when the groundwater is getting depleted by the multinational company, government has to make sure that that does not deprive the livelihood of the farmers. So this is by making certain rules strict, following the rules, implementing the rules in the interest of the people, in the interest of the sustainable development, and they can make globalization fair.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Professor Srinivasan, we are not left with much time.
So I am just like coming to the true or false question. So look at the screen actually. So if you look at these are the concepts that I taught you. Like I introduced you to these 3 sessions, and I have very interesting 8 questions. You can ask. You can look at the screen, read those questions. You can say true, false or not sure. The question number 1, a company can be multinational only when it buys goods and services from companies located in different countries. Multilateral trading system, second question. Multinational trading system is an important dimension of globalization. Question number 3, multinational companies are mainly engaged in producing capital goods. Question number 4, import and export activities are mainly done by computers. Question number 5, creative destruction involves continuous innovation of goods and services and technological change. Question number 6, some multinational companies outsource goods and services to make their final or finished products. Question number 7, Ford is a multinational company whose headquarters is located in London. Question number 8, restricting the import of a commodity is one form of trade barrier. So if you are able to answer this question correctly, I am sure that my discussion went on well actually.
I am very happy to see that the viewers are already responding, but what we are expecting, we are less in time, so you can take the screenshot and you can send your answers on our official email ID ciet.kishormanch@gmail.com. So what we can do, we can include all your answers in the next session of Professor Srinivasan. And today what we understood about the how World Trade Organization function. And to know more about the World Trade Organization, what Professor Srinivasan referred, he asked you to go through the official website of World Trade Organization, which was WTO.org. And we also understood about how globalization impacts on India. Particularly, we also discussed about service company and industrial hub. And under this also we discussed about special economic zones. We also discussed about how does people deal with globalization, and we also taken up the questions related to fair globalization. And thank you so much, Professor Srinivasan,
Thank you.
for being with us. And in the next session we shall talk on human eye and the colorful world part 2. So be with us, we will be back after a short while.